Needles Highway. The most famous mountains in the USA are, of course, the Rockies, but that's not the only mountain range in the country with an incredible view of the landscapes. Take the Black Hills in the Midwest, where crowds of tourists come to admire the scenery every year. Near this mountain range, there's a famous Custer Park, where visitors can see flocks of bison, mountain streams, amazing plants, and even artificial lakes created for fishing. And in the state of South Dakota, there's an unusual Needles Highway. It stretches over the mountains for 23 kilometers and owes its name to the unusual formations of granite. Their shape is the result of centuries of erosion caused by the wind. But that's not all. The highlight of the highway is an unusually narrow tunnel resembling a needle's eye. It's only 2.5 meters wide and its height is about 3.5 meters. It's very scary to pass through such a tunnel, but apparently it's not dangerous. There haven't been any rock slides or any other incidents here so far. Dalton Highway. What's it like to live in Alaska? Well, first of all, you need to be ready to wear a sweater all of the time, unless you're a tourist who just dropped by. There is virtually no summertime here. Winter lasts from October to March, and the rest of the time the weather is something between summer and autumn in the usual American sense. But what Alaska is really famous for is the beauty of its natural landscapes. You can appreciate them by going on a road tour through the local snow-covered expanses. You should carefully choose the roads though, because all local routes will be a real challenge for an inexperienced driver. The Dalton Highway parallels the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline and is one of the most remote roads in the United States. Until the 90s, it was accessible only to commercial vehicles, but now anyone can use it. But there are many factors to consider. Firstly, for most of the year, this almost unpaved road is covered with a crust of ice or a thick layer of snow. Secondly, it runs through a desolate area. There are only 3 towns along the 600+ kilometer route, with a couple of dozen people in each of them. No gas stations with a rich assortment of sandwiches or roadside cafes, so only the most daring tourists come here. Most of the time, the road is just used by trucks. Skipper's Canyon. In the middle of the 19th century, New Zealand, like some other countries in different historical periods, was gripped by the so-called gold rush. The harbour town of Hokitika, where the gold seekers arrived, could hardly cope with the load. Since 1865, tens of thousands of people from all over the world came there every year. Needless to say, most of the miners worked in incredibly difficult conditions. They had to do almost everything from scratch, not only prepare spots for mining, but also pave the way to them. A few kilometers west of Queenstown, for example, prospectors discovered the gold-bearing valley of the Shotover River. There was one problem though. There were no roads at all. So the workers had to build a serpentine road right across the Skipper's Canyon. Of course, few people cared about safety back then. The track is a 22-kilometer narrow road, not wide enough for any car. It's better to avoid this track when it gets dark or after rain, but there's no debate about the incredible views. On one side there are majestic cliffs, and on the other a gaping abyss with a fantastic blue river. By the way, some scenes from the first Lord of the Rings film and the 6th part of Mission Impossible saga were filmed here. Karnali Highway. If you're afraid of heights, then you might feel a bit dizzy while looking at these images. The 200-kilometer Karnali Highway, located northwest of Nepalese Kathmandu, is considered one of the most dangerous roads in the world. About 50 people die here every year, and at night, travel on the highway is prohibited. In such conditions, accidents are just inevitable. The road has a very bad surface too. Most of it's covered with low-quality asphalt with occasional fragments of gravel. Don't forget about narrow areas, landslides, flooded areas, and bumps too. And during the rainy season, a trip along such a road turns into a blind race for survival. Cotopaxi Road. In the South American country of Ecuador, there is the Cotopaxi volcano, almost 6,000 meters tall. Unlike most geological formations of this type, it's not dormant. The last time it erupted was only 5 years ago, and the most destructive cataclysm happened here in 1768. Back then, several nearby settlements were completely wiped out by lava flows. Despite the tragedy, today the area around is inhabited. Moreover, there's even a national park which attracts especially fearless tourists. You can get here along a special path, a 40-kilometer road, a significant part of which is littered with deep potholes. In addition, floods are frequent here, and even after a light rain, large sections of the route may end up underwater. Only locals can probably feel safe on this road, and perhaps the Formula One racers if volcanoes don't scare them. Lowari Pass. When you live in a small province in the countryside, your life is much more unpredictable than it would be in a large metropolis. For example, the people from the Pakistani town of Chitral are completely cut off from civilization for at least 3 months of the year. The only road that connects the town with the rest of the world is usually simply buried under snow. But that's not the only trouble. The thing is, the road is also one of the most dangerous in the world. There's almost no asphalt cover on it, but there are sharp turns and deep potholes. The road also goes through the mountains, which only makes an already dangerous trip even more unsafe. Fortunately, a couple of years ago, a tunnel with a normal road surface finally opened below the Lowari Pass. They kept trying to build it since the 1970s, but political unrest and problems of financing hindered the project. It took $160 million and 40 years to complete the project, and the Lowari Pass is no longer used. Commonwealth Avenue. You may have already noticed that all dangerous roads have a lot in common. For example, they're almost always located in remote areas, often in the mountains. However, our next case is quite different. The road is located in the heart of the Philippine Quezon City, which is very large. Nowadays, it's home to almost 3 million people. We wouldn't call Commonwealth Avenue narrow either. On the contrary, it's too wide, which is the main problem. In some sections, this 12-kilometer road is divided into as many as 18 lanes. Hundreds of thousands of garbage trucks, vans, buses, cars and motorcycles drive there every day. Such crazy traffic leads to an incredible number of accidents. About 7,000 people die there each year. Most often we're talking about car collisions, but there are also pedestrians being frequently run over and even robberies. Tianmen Road. China probably holds a record for its sheer number of dangerous roads. Extreme drivers definitely need to go there if they're searching for thrills, and one of such roads is located on Tianmen Mountain, the one with the famous Heaven's Gate arch on top. To get to the peak, you first need to come a long way along an extremely dangerous serpentine. The length of the route is a little over 10 kilometers, but it has 99 sharp turns. Be careful though, the photo of this road alone can make you nauseous. There is a staircase with 999 steps at the end of the road, which leads to the majestic arch. You may have wondered why everything in this place hints to the number 9, just like the price tags in supermarkets. Well, the answer is simple. It is considered lucky in many Asian cultures. By the way, in 1999, a special aviation show was arranged on the mountain. Pilot teams performed tricks in the air and flew right through the hole at the top of Tianmen Mountain. Vitim Bridge. Dangerous bridges, of course, deserve a separate video, but we still want to tell you about one of them right at the end of this one. This frightening structure looms over the Vitim River on the border of 2 Russian regions, the Zabaykalsky Krai and the Buryatia. It is only 7 meters wide, and there are no protective barriers on either side. Not every truck could even drive on it. This shaky bridge was built in the 1980s, but it was never officially opened. However, this fact, as well as the fragile wooden cover and the very bad condition in general, does not stop hundreds of people from using the dangerous crossing every day. In fact, they simply have no other choice. For the residents of the local Kuanda village, this bridge is the only link to the outside world. It's used to deliver food and fuel.